They found the city completely intact. The bread was still in the ovens. The tools were still on the workbenches. The boats were still tied to the docks. And the people were simply gone. No bodies, no graves, no signs of war or famine or disease. An entire civilization of over 5 million souls had vanished. Not over centuries, not over decades, but seemingly within a single generation. And the most terrifying part? To this day, not a single historian on Earth can tell you why. We're talking about the Indus Valley Civilization. And what happened to it remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in all of human history. At its height, around 2500 BCE, the Indus Valley Civilization was not some primitive settlement scratching at the dirt. It was the largest civilization on Earth, larger than ancient Egypt, larger than Mesopotamia. It stretched across 1.5 million square kilometers, from the mountains of modern Afghanistan down through Pakistan and into northwestern India. Its two great cities, Mohenjo-daro and Harappa, were engineering masterpieces that the ancient world would not see matched for another 2,000 years. Think about what that means. While people in Europe were still living in mud huts, the citizens of Mohenjo-daro were walking on paved streets laid out in perfect grids. They had indoor plumbing. Individual homes had private bathrooms connected to city-wide sewage systems. There were public baths, multi-story buildings, covered drainage channels running beneath every street. They had standardized brick sizes used uniformly across thousands of kilometers, which means they had central planning, coordinated governance, and sophisticated trade networks that spanned from the Persian Gulf all the way to Central Asia. They were not primitive. They were extraordinary. And then, they were nothing. The first European to lay eyes on the ruins of Harappa was a British Army deserter named James Lewis in 1829. He wandered into what is now Punjab, Pakistan, and stumbled upon a vast field of ancient bricks. He assumed it was some forgotten medieval fort. He had no idea he was standing inside one of the oldest and most advanced cities ever built by human hands. It was not until 1921 that archaeologists Sir John Marshall, Daya Ramsani, and Rakal Das Banerjee began the first serious excavations, and what they uncovered shook the entire academic world. Here was a civilization nobody had known existed. No mention of it in ancient Greek texts. No record of it in Egyptian scrolls. No legend or myth that pointed to its existence. It had simply been buried under centuries of soil and silence, waiting in the dark for someone to find it. And what they found should have given us answers. Instead, it multiplied the questions. The city showed almost no signs of warfare. There were no grand palaces, no towering temples, no statues of kings or conquerors. In almost every major civilization we have ever discovered, the rulers leave traces, monuments to their own greatness, tombs filled with treasure, inscriptions boasting of their victories. Not here. The Indus Valley people seemed almost aggressively equal. The homes of the wealthy and the homes of the workers were built to similar scales. There are no mass graves of soldiers, no weapons caches, no city walls scarred by siege. Whoever these people were, they did not glorify war, which makes what happened next even more baffling. Around 1900 BCE, something began to go wrong. Slowly at first, then faster. The great cities started to deteriorate. Trash accumulated in streets that had once been spotless. Buildings were subdivided into smaller, cramped spaces, a sign of overcrowding or population stress. Trade with Mesopotamia, which had been thriving for centuries, began to collapse. The sophisticated sewage systems fell into disrepair, and the people began to leave. Not all at once, not in a single night, but over the course of roughly 200 years, 5 million people walked away from the greatest urban civilization the ancient world had ever seen. By 1700 BCE, Mohenjo-daro was almost entirely abandoned. By 1300 BCE, the entire civilization had effectively ceased to exist. The question that has haunted archaeologists for over a century is simply this: where did they go, and why? For decades, the leading theory was conquest. In the 1940s, The legendary archaeologist Sir Mortimer Wheeler pointed to a layer of skeletons found at Mohenjo-daro, 37 bodies scattered in the streets and alleyways, and declared it proof of massacre. He blamed the Indo-Aryan migrations, nomadic peoples sweeping in from Central Asia with horses and iron weapons, overwhelming a civilization that had grown soft and defenseless. It was a dramatic story. It fit neatly into the historical narrative of the time. It was also almost entirely wrong. Later analysis of those 37 skeletons revealed something Wheeler had missed or chosen to ignore. The bodies were not all deposited at the same time. Some were buried carefully, with clear signs of ritual. Others showed no trauma whatsoever. And the so-called massacre layer? It dated from multiple different time periods, spread across centuries. There was no single catastrophic attack. The violent end Wheeler had imagined never actually happened. So if not conquest, then what? The climate theory emerged from deep soil analysis and satellite imaging conducted in the late 20th century. Scientists discovered that around 2000 BCE, the monsoon patterns across South Asia began to shift dramatically. The rains that had fed the rivers and flooded the agricultural plains for thousands of years started to fail. The Great Ghaggar-Hakra River system, which the ancient Indians themselves called the Sarasvati, a river so sacred they wrote hymns to it, began to dry up. Without consistent rainfall, without the river floods that replenished the soil, crops failed, animals died, and a civilization built on agricultural surplus began to starve from the inside out. This explains the population dispersal. The people of the Indus Valley did not die. They migrated eastward toward the Ganges Plain, where rainfall was still reliable. They broke into smaller communities, abandoned the grand urban experiment, and dissolved back into the landscape of the Indian subcontinent. Their descendants, some scholars argue, are among the ancestors of the people living in South Asia today. But here is where the mystery deepens into something almost unbearable. The Indus script has never been deciphered. Over 4,000 inscriptions have been found across hundreds of sites. Short sequences of symbols carved into small rectangular seals, stamped into clay tablets, scratched onto pottery. There are over 400 distinct signs. Researchers have fed them into computers. Linguists have spent entire careers trying to crack the code. And despite over 100 years of effort, nobody has succeeded. We do not know what language these people spoke. We do not know what they called themselves, what they named their cities, what gods they prayed to, what stories they told their children at night. The Indus Valley Civilization is the only major ancient civilization in history whose writing remains completely undeciphered. Think about what that means. The Egyptians left us their language. The Mesopotamians left us their myths. Even the Minoans, another mysterious Bronze Age people, left us Linear B, which was finally decoded in 1952. But the Indus Valley people? They left us symbols we cannot read, in a language we cannot speak, telling stories we may never know. Every seal we find is a locked door. Every inscription is a sentence spoken into silence. And yet the seals themselves are haunting in their detail. One of the most famous, found at Mohenjo-daro, shows a horned figure seated in what appears to be a yogic posture, surrounded by animals, a tiger, a rhinoceros, a buffalo, an elephant. Some scholars see in this image a proto-Shiva, an early form of the great Hindu deity who would dominate South Asian religion for millennia. If they are right, then the religious traditions of over 1 billion people alive today may have roots stretching back to a civilization that vanished nearly 4,000 years ago. The gods of the Indus Valley may never have truly died. They may have simply changed their names. In 2016, a team of researchers from IIT Gandhinagar published a study suggesting the collapse was not sudden at all, but a slow, agonizing unraveling across 3 distinct phases. First, the decline of urban centers, then the fragmentation of trade networks, then the final dissolution of shared cultural identity. They called it the longest and most peaceful urban collapse in recorded history. A civilization that chose, collectively, to walk away. Not conquered, not destroyed, simply done. But that answer has never fully satisfied. Because somewhere in the soil of Pakistan and India, beneath cities with names that generations of people forgot, lie answers we still cannot reach. The Indus Valley Civilization wrote something down. They recorded their lives, their laws, their beliefs, their losses. That writing exists. We have it in our hands. We simply cannot read it. And perhaps that is the most unsettling thought of all. Not that they vanished without leaving a word, but that they left us everything. And we still cannot understand a single sentence. 5 million people lived, built, loved, and disappeared. They spoke to us across 4,000 years of silence. And we are still not listening.